Hello! In this video I have collated all the Easter eggs and cool details from the second season of Poker Face. There are spoilers throughout the video, so only watch if you have seen the whole season. If you don't want spoilers, you may want to check the videos I made as the episodes aired. And if you are one of the 7 people that watch those videos, I will be covering more or less the same ground. Let's get straight to it, starting with the game is afoot. The formula hasn't changed. It is still an inverted detective story a la Columbo, where we see the murderer at the beginning and then see how Charlie catches them. The show still uses the same credits that are similar to Columbo's credits too. The episode takes us into a family of now grown-up 90s child stars, and basically leans into all the stereotypes of the era with relish. There's the controlling parent in charge of the children's earnings, a la the Culkins. In this case, supercharged, with a really evil mother. There's the whole child actor that has to have a twin in order to comply with acting regulations, a la the Olsen twins. In this case, supercharged with quadruplets. The situation with the invalid mother trapped in an upstairs bedroom, reliant on a disgruntled relative as a carer, of course brings to mind the classic film Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, with 2 dames of Hollywood, Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Said horrible mother makes fun of her daughter's Amber's creations, saying that she would be the Gauguin of Etsy. Now, Paul Gauguin is a pretty successful painter. He was even moderately successful in his own time. Amber would be lucky if her works were that well received. So I'm not sure it's a very good barb. Ah, no, wait, I get it. And lest we forget, her looks and her name are similar to the looks and name of movie great Norma Desmond from Sunset Boulevard. The glimpses that we get of the 90s show itself are also delicious. It's called Kid Cup Nights, and the styling is extremely reminiscent of mid-90s shows, and I think definitely of definite flop Baywatch Nights. Much like Kid Cup, Baywatch Nights also apparently took a turn for the supernatural in its second season. Remember that? No, you probably had stopped watching by then, if you ever did in the first place.
I forgot that it was so metaphysical. It's ahead of its time, really.
The 9th season of Kid Cup took place in the mind of a coma patient that Kid Cup's evil twin shot in the neck, which has to be a nod to Roseanne's 9th season being a dream that Roseanne had come up with in her new career as a writer, which was very controversial at the time, and probably still is, but Roseanne is more controversial now anyway, for other reasons. And of course, there are evil twins aplenty in TV and film, enough for the subject to warrant a page in TV tropes. The sisters name Joseph Gordon-Levitt as one of their favorite guest stars on the show, who is a notable collaborator of Ryan Johnson, aka Poker Face's creator, and lest we forget, also a murderer from season 1. The other favorite guest star was Tamara Dobson, who played the ghost of Kid Cup's great-great-grandmother in Kid Cup Civil War Christmas, who according to IMDb had stopped acting by the mid-80s, which would have made it hard for her to act in Kid Cup, but I get the vibe. Charlie gets a few good lines during all the mayhem. For example, when she's entertaining the theory that the 5th sister, Felicity, might be an imposter, she calls her Anastasia Felicity, presumably harking back to the 90s animated film Anastasia, where a Princess Anastasia lookalike is presented in order to get a reward. Among other great lines, Charlie remarks, "They gotta stop feeding these girls after midnight," when she says that there is a 5th sister. This is of course an allusion to the Gremlins movie franchise, where under no circumstances people should feed the cute mogwais after midnight or they'll turn into gremlins. Sorry, spoiler alert for the Gremlins movie franchise. Should have said that at the beginning. But enough about Kid Cup. What has Charlie been up to since we last saw her? Just like in season 1, we get Charlie's theme, the music that we hear just before we're about to see our old friend Charlie in every episode. Charlie has had various short-lived gigs, it appears, one of which is in a parking lot with an attendant that would rather be reading his book instead of talking to a bored Charlie. Cookie, I think that's his name, is reading a novel by Erica Young called Fear of Flying, which was published in the 70s and had caused quite a sensation for its depiction of female desire and sexuality. It apparently coined the term zipless that more or less means one-night stand, and which apparently is the reason why most of the covers of the book have zips on them. As Cookie notes, it was written around the time of second-wave feminism. Charlie is reading what appears to be a somewhat obscure version of Charlie Mingus's autobiography, Beneath the Underdog. Charlie Mingus was a jazz musician and composer. I can see Charlie liking jazz, or there not being any other books around for her to read. One last bit. Charlie seems to have moved on from cigarette smoking to vaping. This was apparently at the the behest of Natasha Lyonne's co-stars in the Netflix film His Three Daughters. Her sisters in that film, Carrie Coon and Elizabeth Olsen, convinced her to switch to vaping after she lost her voice after a day of yelling. According to Lyonne, she's been vaping 9,000 vapes a day ever since, so it's been incredible. In this episode, we see the first indication that Charlie's lie detecting ability is not completely infallible. When Amber, the murderous quintuplet that has killed the fifth sister Felicity in order to impersonate her and get their mother's inheritance, is able to put on a performance as Felicity and fool Charlie. She uses her words carefully, but also she's able to inhabit the character of Felicity and stamp Charlie. Finally, here's all the hats that Charlie wears in this episode. Moving on to episode 2, Last Looks. We open with a shot of a funeral home called Finch and Sons, which of course brings to mind, well, at least to my mind, early noughties TV show 6 Feet Under, which featured a similarly named family-owned funeral home called Fisher and Sons. 6 Feet Under, which ended its run 20 years ago, was one of these shows that, along with The Wire, ushered what we have come to know as the golden age of television. Incidentally, much like this episode, one of the 6 Feet Under episodes featured a biker funeral, which will definitely make you want to listen to Blue Oyster Cult. It's worth a watch, or a rewatch, as it also familiarized the audience with a bunch of future TV stars. Speaking of stars, Poker Face keeps having a stellar selection of guest stars. Creator Ryan Johnson has said in an interview that he wanted the guests to be the star of the episode, and it's always a good game to try to figure out who will be murdered and who will be the murderer. In this case, the murderer, played by Giancarlo Esposito, is called Fred Finch. And if you know Giancarlo Esposito from something, it's probably from Breaking Bad and its prequel Better Call Saul, where he played a character called Gus Fring. Gus, who was also not a good guy, had a similar predicament in terms of being around explosions. The explosion appears to have destroyed what was a beautiful building, and if you thought that the building was too beautiful, you were right. The building is called the Armour-Steiner Octagon House, and it is in Irvington in upstate New York, where a lot of season 2 was filmed. It's a National Historic Landmark, and you can book a tour to see it. It's also not the first time that it has featured on the screen, as it was the location of an 80s obscure horror movie called The Nesting. The episode, which was directed by Natasha Lyonne, like season 1's The Orpheus Syndrome, leans into a lot of horror/pulp movie tropes. There's the old buried alive situation, that of course is the stuff of nightmares, even if it was slightly subverted here, as Charlie was not in fact buried, but almost equally dangerously headed into a furnace. There's the scary shadow approaching, and there's the whole someone's hiding in the backseat in the dark, used in too many things to list. My favorite of which is probably that sweet piece of TV that was Veronica Mars season 1. I'm sure that by now we all know that you can't really knock someone out by simply holding a chloroformed towel over their nose for 20 seconds, but we all accept it as a handy trope. And now let's check with our old pal Charlie, who is in top form in this episode. We get Charlie's theme when we first see her on the beach, desperately looking for someone to connect with. She has several excellent lines when talking to that uninterested kid. For example, she says she might even run for Sheriff of Aspen, which is a reference to author Hunter S. Thompson that the kid unsurprisingly misses. Hunter S. Thompson was a pioneer of gonzo journalism and was most famous for his book Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which has been turned into film. Thompson unsuccessfully ran for sheriff in Pitkin County in Colorado on a freak power ticket, which included the decriminalization of drugs and renaming Aspen as Fat City. Charlie also says in response to the kid not getting her references, that's why we need to keep books in Florida libraries. She's referring to a campaign to remove books from libraries in America by conservative organizations. Now, of course, banning books historically has been the hallmark of freedom. Why stop there? Maybe even burn some. I'll add a link to the list of the banned books in Florida for anyone looking for reading recommendations. Charlie also tells us that she has stopped smoking and has taken up vaping instead, something that has explosive consequences for the episode. Natasha Lyonne herself had said that she switched to vaping, but apparently, most recently she sent in an interview to old friend Seth Meyers that she's back to smoking. That interview is a hoot, by the way, you should definitely check it out. Actually, the beach is not the first time we see Charlie in the episode. She was, after all, the corpse, and we can see her locks and vaping in the opening film footage. After the beach, Charlie goes to Publix, suggesting that they are most likely meant to be in Florida instead of upstate New York where they were actually filming. In Publix, she meets Keith Corrigan, a car scout, who Katie Holmes' character later takes an interest in. This is a mini Slums of Beverly Hills reunion, which is a 1998 small indie film starring Lyonne, where Keith Corrigan was her love interest. Charlie continues to throw pop culture references right and left, but unfortunately nobody gets them. We know she's a movie buff from season 1. When Hot Tommy tells her he's a teamster, she cheerfully says she has seen Hoffa, which is a Danny DeVito directed film from 1992 starring Jack Nicholson as infamous union leader Jimmy Hoffa, who was linked to the mob and who mysteriously disappeared in 1975. When Charlie is given a CB radio for the car, she says she will be like Linda Mance from the classic 1980 Dennis Hopper film Out of the Blue. Natasha Lyonne and best pal Chloe Sevigny have restored that old film to 4K, so if you haven't watched it, now is your chance. Charlie naturally strikes up a friendship with anyone who wants a friend, in this case Greta. She goes looking for her in the morning after they had agreed to go to Miami together, yelling, "We ride at dawn!" You think that might have come from something specific, but it is actually hard to pinpoint the origin of that phrase. Versions of it have appeared in Clash of the Titans and Lord of the Rings, and it has since featured in countless memes. The biker funeral is also great for pop culture references. The loving montage for Mama Bunsey features a shot from the Russ Meyer's exploitation film Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, suggesting that Mama Bunsey was maybe Varla, aka Tura Satana. And there's also the biker that reminisces how he had met Mama Banshee after Randy Savage had just died. Randy, Macho Man Savage, was a WWE wrestler who died from a heart attack while driving in 2011. The episode cleverly uses music to advance its plot in ways that feel very organic. Sleepwalk by Santo and Johnny is the clue that tips Charlie into thinking Fred murdered his wife, while Ring My Bell, used as a ringtone, leads to the discovery of Greta's phone and helps Charlie confirm that Fred was loose with the truth about his wife's whereabouts. I'll let you decide whether Sleepwalk was cultural appropriation or just a couple of Italian Americans looking for something different, and whether Ring My Bell has hidden meanings that the songwriter deliberately tried to avoid in order to maintain the clean-cut image of singer Anita Ward. The episode finishes with the first cliffhanger of the season, which the next episode picks up straight from. Whack-A-Mole was a departure from the usual formula, as we open with Charlie being held at gunpoint by Beatrix Hasp, while she's nervously driving her Barracuda, instead of our usual guest stars murdering each other. Or maybe actually, if you think about it, we still have guest stars murdering each other before we see Charlie's point of view. If the episode has a theme, it is Stephen Sondheim, who is one of the most important theatre composers and lyricists of the 20th century. Chances are that even if you are not familiar with his name, you are familiar with his work, as he has contributed to some of the biggest musical hits of the century. Ryan Johnson, the creator of Poker Face, loves Sondheim, and it shows. Firstly, we have veteran actor Richard Kind, who has starred in Sondheim shows, singing Hello Little Girl from Into the Woods to his wife. That song, by the way, is sung by the wolf to Little Red Riding Hood, trying to get her to stray from her path, much like Geoffrey was trying to get Beatrix to stray away from her mob ways. Then we get Simon Helberg and John Mulaney exchanging lines from Here's to Us, from the Merrily We're All Along musical. Kind and Mulaney had also starred together in a Documentary Now episode of a spoof of the 70s documentary Original Cast Album Company, which was about the story of the live recording of Stephen Sondheim's musical Company. If you think that reunion is a bit of a stretch in terms of Easter eggs, you're right. Ryan Johnson did say that it was all a happy coincidence. Moving on, a pivotal point early in the episode is at a gas station, Delhi, and while they're meant to be in Florida, Sonomax is a real establishment that is very much in Brooklyn, New York instead. Now, this is a very small point, but I have to make it. Beatrix Hasp says she does not want
Sniveling little ratatouille on board.
This most likely refers to the misconception that the chef rat from the film Ratatouille was called Ratatouille. He was in fact called Remy. Ratatouille is the food that Remy prepared for Ego, the restaurant critic, that reminded him of his mom's food from when he was a child. And is that scene in the top 5 scenes that Pixar has ever made? Yes, it is. Finish this video and go watch it again. Charlie refers to Richard Kine's character as the Iron Chef. She says, "Not that kind of Iron Chef." She means a literal Iron Chef, as he used an electric iron to make a sandwich, and not an Iron Chef from the Japanese cooking show that was successfully transplanted to America. When Beatrix Hasp wonders how she can be certain that Charlie isn't lying about anyone in her crew lying, Charlie quips that they have a
"Who's watching the Watchmen quandary?"
Now, this is not a question on the audience of the 2019 TV show, or the Zack Snyder superhero critique of 2009, or the pretty awesome graphic novel by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, both of those were based on, but rather a phrase mistakenly attributed to Plato's Republic, where in his concept of an ideal city, there was a class of guardians that were supposed to keep the peace. The specific phrase is actually traced to a poem by Juvenal that refers to marital fidelity, but it is usually used in the context of corrupt governments and policing or the judicial system. Next, I get that there is a good reason for there to be a blow-up doll in the pilot seat, so that it looks that someone is in the cockpit from afar and Beatrix Hasp and her crew are fooled. But seriously, it is impossible not to think of Airplane, the irreverent disaster movie of 1980, which used a blow-up doll as the autopilot. Then we get the head FBI agent calling the agent that's obsessed with plants Johnny Appleseed. This isn't a random nickname, but rather refers to John Chapman, a pioneer nurseryman that lived at the turn of the 19th century and who became an American icon by traveling and planting nurseries. In terms of throwaway references, I love this one by Beatrix Hasp to Mulaney's character. She says,
"Pull your jets, Maverick."
Now, of course, cool your jets is a fairly common expression, but when she adds Maverick, it makes you think that maybe she's referring to Tom Cruise's character in Top Gun. But as it turns out, Maverick is the name that Mulaney's Danny gave to her instead of his real name. And this comes back right at the end of the episode, when she doesn't know his real name to give to the FBI, delaying his reveal and giving him time to get on the plane and try to kill everyone. Speaking of Mulaney's character, he casually refers to Natasha Lyonne's Charlie as Prince of the City. This is another deep cut, outdated pop culture reference to a 1981 movie starring Treat Williams about a corrupt New York narcotics detective who is reluctantly recruited to help investigate police corruption. Soon he realizes nobody can be trusted, which is happily not the case with Charlie, as she can trust Luca. Taste of Blood is the most ridiculous episode of the season, with many gags throughout the episode. Let's start with the Flopacopas. Someone had a lot of fun coming up with all the gags for the awards. The Florida Panhandle Cup Awards are a big deal. Firstly, we have this ska band called Yolo Tomasi and the Rude Boys. Yolo Tomasi should be a reference to Rollo Tomasi, a key plot point that I won't spoil from LA Confidential, a 90s film that introduced a couple of Australians to the public and was based on the far superior book by James Ellroy. Then we get the canapés that are called Miranda Bites, after the Miranda rides that cops famously read when they arrest somebody. And apparently the cup groupies are called pig porkers. Now, if you thought that coming up with the name The Glades for a cup show and hiring an Australian to pretend he was the lead actor was creative, think again. Matt Passmore of the hit show The Glades is actually Matt Passmore of the A&E show The Glades. Not sure if it was a hit though. It had 4 seasons of state police detective Jim Longworth investigating crimes, and it ended on a cliffhanger. By the way, the Flopacopas are sponsored by the Fountain of Tooth Dentistry. We also see that the winner of Undercover Cup of the Year was Diego Verbinski III, who was silently watching while deep undercover, but could not help himself when duty called. And of course, everybody boos when they announce the award for Best Internal Investigation. Almost everything that the cops say when they are getting ready to hunt Daisy sounds and feels like a cliché from a cop movie, but does not come from a specific source as far as I could tell. Kudos to the writers and the actors for making something original sound classic. The one thing that I felt must have come from something was "He's in the walls." But this, too, also appears elusive. It may have originally appeared in Olympus Has Fallen, where a character is in the walls, and most likely became a thing as a meme, also featuring in a Blark and Son episode. This is the second episode in a row where we don't get Charlie's theme when we first see her. In Whack-A-Mole, she appeared immediately on the screen, so it was not really needed. And in this one, instead of the theme, we get a variation with some added meditative notes as Charlie is looking to find herself. Charlie's still on fine form with her movie references. She calls Daisy, Gator Joe's alligator, the Judy Garland of alligators. That was not because she had gazed into her beautiful eyes, but because as a child star, Judy Garland, along with other young talent, was prescribed amphetamines to keep up with the pressures of filming. She became addicted to drugs and had issues throughout her life and died of overdose or barbiturates. We get the first voice appearance of Good Buddy, voiced by Steve Buscemi. He is the first person that gets Charlie's out of the blue reference. She also makes another reference. This one I don't get myself. I think she's meant to be imitating Werner Herzog when he's talking about chickens, or maybe narrating Grizzly Man. You should watch that, by the way. Of course, the most obvious reference the episode makes is to the Tiger King. Remember back in 2020 when we collectively lost our minds watching a documentary about the big cat community? Well, in case you forgot, here's Poker Face's take on it. A smaller reference is with regards to the outfits of the caterers, including what Charlie's activist alligator liberators are wearing. They are reminiscent, but not exactly identical, of what the Party Down caterers were wearing. Adding to the list of strained flopacopa puns, we get where the crawdads swing. Let's deconstruct this. You may know crawdads as crayfish or crawfish. They don't swing, but they sing, according to the bestseller by Delia Owens, which also got a film adaptation. It's set in North Carolina, not in Florida, but I guess they're both similarly swampy. Crawdads don't technically sing, they actually make a sound that resembles clicking. Swing, according to Urban Dictionary, is used to express admiration for a beautiful woman. So this is some hot crayfish that they are serving at the buffet. In this episode, Leon reunites with Gabby Hoffman, whom she first met back in 1996 when they were both teenagers in the Woody Allen science fiction musical Everyone Says I Love You, where the Woody Allen character is presented as a viable romantic option for both Goldie Hawn and Julia Roberts. Finally, to give some director love, we get a very unlikely appearance by independent director John Sayles as the captain of Officer Fran Lamont. John Sayles has directed several serious films, but has also written early in his career a film called Alligator, which, yes, is about a man-eating alligator that lives in the Chicago sewers and starts attacking humans. Hometown Hero focuses on America's favorite and frankly mystifying sport, baseball. Despite John Oliver's recent Last Week Tonight episode and reading Moneyball, I am fully prepared to miss all the references. So be sure to tell me what I missed in the comments. Let's have a look. To begin with, one of the player conspirators is another frequent Rian Johnson collaborator. Rian Johnson collaborates with people so much, he has a notable collaborators section in Wikipedia. This time, it is Noah Segan, who also featured in a Season 1 episode. Continuing with familiar faces, for the second episode in a row, we get an SNL feature player appearing in a supporting role. In Taste of Human Blood, it was Ben Marshall, playing Rusty, and this time we get Egon Wadim as Gilda Dickon, the stadium's cheese-challenged announcer. And hilariously, Charlie, risen from binge-watching The Office, hallucinates BJ Novak as the team's mascot / ballpark founder, Hiram Lubinsky. Was Ryan the worst person in The Office? maybe to tie with Andy. And now getting to the baseball, the hometown hero is called Russ Rocket Waddell, which the internet informs me could be a reference to Rube Waddell, legendary pitcher who had an excellent fastball in the 1900s, and also, as alluded by the episode itself, Roger Rocket Clemens, another legendary pitcher of the 80s and 90s. He is also called Mr. Baseball by Charlie, who is a reference I finally get to 90s film Mr. Baseball, in which Magnum, or if you prefer, Monica's boyfriend, Richard, goes to Japan to revive his baseball career. And finally, the internet tells me again that the cop masquerading as a scout to entrap Russ is an homage to Mike Brito, a legendary LA Dodgers scout. If you're wondering where the Montgomery cheesemongers are based, there are apparently several Montgomerys in America, and this one appears to be in North Carolina. The actual ballpark is nowhere near there, as it is the stadium of the New York Boulders. What even is a boulder? In other news, Charlie is reading Jorge Luis Borges' Labyrinths. This fills in line with the theme of the season, Charlie finding herself, as his works are quite philosophical, or it could be that Charlie found it at the thrift shop. We get another movie reference when the team is likened to the Bad News Bears, originally a 1976 hit film with Walter Matthau and Tatum O'Neal. It spawned two less successful sequels, a short-lived show, and an unsuccessful remake in 2005. All those followed a team of ragtag kids that found some sporting success under the tutelage of a reluctant adult. And here are some cute details from the ballpark. The teams that the Montgomery cheesemongers have faced include the Black Mountain Poetics, the Houston Sombreros, and the Tupelo Honeys. There's also this box on the manager's desk. That surely must be on Temu or Etsy somewhere for me to buy. And here's Carl's Math, in case you missed it. And in terms of other books read on the screen, there's also this fictional one. Moving on to the delicious Sloppy Joseph episode, in which no animals were harmed. Despite no human dying in this one, it was a very tense episode. The moment I saw that gerbil, I was afraid that it might be the murder victim. And talking about that little girl, at first she gave Paris Geller vibes. But is clearly a psychopath, right? Speaking of the little psychopath, she's full of excellent phrases, and you wonder where she picked them up. Maybe in the future we'll get to meet her parents, who are casino owners, which would be in line with Charlie's past predicaments. Anyway, Stephanie says, among other things,
"What is this, anarchy?"
Which Google tells me may be coming from a book by G.K. Chesterton, who I know was a mystery writer, but who, according to Wikipedia, was also a Christian apologist. So maybe they had some of his books at the library of the school? Stephanie also says,
"Are we beasts?"
This one, most certainly, is from the world's most quotable politician, Winston Churchill, uttered when he saw the destruction brought by bombings in Germany. Bombings he would most definitely have contributed to in some way. Then let's learn some new words. I'm sure you all knew the word onomatopoeia, which means to make a word that describes the sound of what you're trying to convey, like crash or moo.
It's moo.
Not sure whether it has been yelled like that before.
A real word.
Onomatopoeia?
Stephanie?
Onomatopoeia?
By anyone in the history of the world. By the way, abracadabra is not an onomatopoeia, Stephanie, as it was in socialism at the end when their kids were giving Toby Jones their stars. The other word I will learn, and which I'd never heard before in my life, comes from the usually tongue-tied Charlie.
Dude, I'm just fucking with you. Come on. Sexy-tuplets saucy, okay?
Where you lock up the evidence, the locker, the evidence locker, Jesus.
And it is
antediluvian.
It means old, specifically so old that you belong to the era before the flood. The flood brings us nicely to something that you may not have noticed at the beginning of the episode, but by the end it was pretty clear. The little display where the gerbills live in the classroom is actually Noah's Ark, and it promotes one of Charlie's pop culture references for the episode. We're going to need a bigger boat. Which of course comes from the world's most quotable film, Jaws. Charlie also calls good buddy Bukowski, which is a reference to beat writer Charles Bukowski, which tracks with Charlie's reading preferences, as we remember from when he was discussing Hunter S. Thompson with that kid on the beach. Couple of episodes ago. We get a couple of reunions too. First, Miss D, although we don't see her straight away, and get Peanut-style POV for all the adults at first. Misty is played by Adrienne C. Moore, who was with Natasha Lyonne in Orange is the New Black as Cindy Hayes. She's the second actor we have seen on Poker Face that has escaped from the old prison show, the first one being Dasha Polanco, who played Charlie's bestie in the first episode. The second reunion is also a second reunion from the old Natasha Lyonne film Slums of Beverly Hills, as we see David Krumholtz playing Elijah's father. He had played Lyonne's brother in that old film. We had also seen Lyonne's love interest from that film early in the season in the Last Looks episode. We see that Elijah seems to be reading, as far as I can make out, a very eclectic book, the catalogue of the auction from 2023 of Ricky Jay's collection. Ricky Jay was a magician, actor and film consultant. He was also a friend of Rian Johnson, the creator of Poker Face, and he would even have featured in Knives Out, but passed away before filming. Now, in terms of the little psychopath, there's a film called The Bad Seed from the 50s, remade in this century. I have not watched it, and if anyone has, please let us know in the comments. But the plot features a little girl in pigtails who loses a penmanship competition to a schoolmate and may or may not be responsible for said schoolmate's death. There are definitely some similar vibes with this one. Finally, my favorite joke of the episode was when Charlie realized that...
You telling me that the class pet's name is Joseph Gerbills?
Which, yep, sounds like Joseph Goebbels, one of Adolf Hitler's closest associates. I think it's fitting that in an episode with children we get a reference to the "nah, don't make that joke." The Christmas episode was a real bummer. The episode was an homage to being a film fan, not an homage to the movie industry or the entertainment industry in general, but just the fandom. Our man Kendall is an avid film fan, with particular interest in heist and crime films. We also get our girl Jenny being a rom-com fan. We get references to or glimpses of several films throughout the episode. The very first one is Baby Driver, and Kendall even names the director Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright is an English filmmaker that, in addition to Baby Driver, has directed the famous Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, collaborating with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. He's also good friends with Rian Johnson, the creator of Poker Face. In fact, Wright has written that he considers Johnson to be one of his best friends in Hollywood, and has appeared uncredited as a resistant trooper in Rian Johnson's Last Jedi. Kendall ultimately falls into many heist movie traps he should have recognized. He gets into work with someone he shouldn't have trusted. He gets too greedy, which jeopardizes everything. He fails to notice details that could undermine his plan, like the toothpaste on his friend's desk that would indicate he lives in the office. My favorite thing of the episode is how it uses the remote control as both a quirky character element and a plot device for Kendall. He carries it with him everywhere, so when he drops it at the end at the mall, and Charlie picks it up to use it to distract the killer a la Home Alone, it works. Let's look at the rom-com side of the episode, which was very cute, if slightly heartbreaking. The middle third of the episode gives Charlie the chance to get some romance. Charlie, of course, is looking for a friend once he starts chatting with Jenny, the rom-com fan who is at first indifferent to her, but gets invested following Charlie's meet-cute with Bill. She puts together a list of potential gifts for Charlie to give to Bill for his birthday, and asks her if Bill has a quirky but non-threatening friend or co-worker that she could get some pointers for the gift from, forgetting, or maybe lampshading, that she also is the quirky but non-threatening co-worker of Charlie getting involved in the romance. Some of the gifts that Jenny has considered include a pen, a leaf blower, a dead bird. Are these from rom-coms? Does anybody know? Charlie ends up getting him a guardian bell, and after some
Incredibly limited research.
I can tell you that they are indeed meant to be hanged from motorcycles to ward off evil spirits when riding, and that they only work when somebody gives them to you rather than you buy it yourself. Indeed, a very sweet gift. The episode also uses classic rom-com song Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer, which became a hit when it was featured in the 1999 film She's All That. It was possibly a bigger hit than the film. I can't play it for copyright reasons, so I will sing it. No, I won't. And here are a few of other movie references that are probably drowned by the whole theme. I know that Juice got his idea to dress up poor Bill's body from Weekend at Bernie's, but A Sunday in a Shop brings Bad Sunday to my mind. When Kendall mentions Gone in 60 Seconds in reference to using UV light, he's referring to the scene where the police discover the crew's list of cars to steal written in UV-sensitive paint. And yes, both Die Hard and It's a Wonderful Life are Christmas movies. There's no doubting that. Some films that are on Kendall's walls and/or his Pix Tower Heist, Mobsters, Hit, Inside Man, Thief, The Wolf of Wall Street, Casino, Scarface, 12 Monkeys, Out of Sight, Miami Vice, Baby Driver, Kill Bill Volume 1, which is tragic. Kendall himself is wearing a t-shirt from The Hard Way, a film featuring Michael J. Fox and James Woods. And in addition to Baby Driver, we also get glimpses of several other films on various screens. Jenny switches from Charlie Varick, a 73 bank robbery film featuring Walter Matthau, to Notting Hill, the classic rom-com with Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts. She's also watching Bridget Jones' Diary before Charlie leaves for another delivery to the Super Save. And they are both watching Pride and Prejudice before they get the last call from the Super Save, this time sadly from the police. Then Charlie distracts Juice, flipping through several films. The Kubrick classic The Killing, The Lady from Shanghai by Orson Welles featuring Rita Hayworth, Ambulance, a 2022 Michael Bay film featuring Jake Gyllenhaal, and of course Heat, which is name-checked throughout the episode, and to which the episode pays an homage at its close, even using the same font and music for its credits. And just one more small cool detail from this scene, the climax of The Lady from Shanghai takes place in an actual hall of mirrors that gets shattered by pistol shots. And here is Charlie's description of the 4 movies from the Mission Impossible franchise, from Kendall's log. I'll add the list of all the films in the description for anyone looking for things to watch. Charlie continued her travels in the Sleazy Georgian. As Charlie is trying to drown her sorrow over Bill's death, she gets in with a gang of conmen. Although I have to wonder, do you really need that many people to run a con? You'd be forgiven for conflating at least 2 Paul Newman films, as the setting in a billiards room brings to mind the flawless 1961 film The Hustler, while the whole con setup brings to mind the delicious Sting. Maybe there's a bit of David Mamet's House of Games in there too. The Sleazy Georgian is not only the name of the episode, but it's also the name of the con, referring to the country, not the state. And in case you were wondering, Larry is indeed the name of the Georgian currency. The con is like the pigeon drop con, a con that has frequently featured in pop culture. In addition to the aforementioned Sting and House of Games, it has even featured in Golden Girls. We have several reunions. I'm beginning to think that Natasha Lyonne is just doing poker face in order to hang out with her buddies, because this time we see actress extraordinaire Melanie Lynskey, another buddy of Lyonne's from her But I'm a Cheerleader days. Lyonne, Lynskey, and other familiar poker face Clea Duvall have also met at Duvall's The Intervention, although this time Lyonne and Lynskey don't interact on the screen, as poor Regina sadly dies before Charlie gets in the picture. And honestly, given Lynskey's turn in Yellow Jackets as an unassuming housewife / murderous cannibal, I was kinda expecting her to be the con person. Moving on with reunions, we get Joel Mars Garland, Manny. The Muscle, or the Consigliere, depending on who you believe, is another Orange is the New Black album. His partner, Robin, or Sketch, is portrayed by Brenton Sexton III, who was also in Russian Doll, Lyonne's critically acclaimed Netflix hit. Meanwhile, I wonder whether Ryan Johnson met John Cho while they were both voice acting for an episode of BoJack Horseman. That's a stretch, right? Or maybe the poker face casting focused on people that had starred in The After Party, which also featured Sam Richardson from the previous episode. We get several pop culture references. Gaeta, the Money Man, claims to be like the numbers whiz from the Ben Affleck movie, which Charlie takes to mean Good Will Hunting, but which Gaeta means The Accountant, which really got everything wrong about what accountants do, and has a sequel out. In all fairness, I would never refer to Good Will Hunting as the Ben Affleck movie. We also get a lot of referencing of Dexter, the serial killer that only killed other killers. Except he didn't, did he? I thought that old IP had lost its luster after all the sequels and prequels and spin-offs. Anyway, Charlie tells the con man that he's like Dexter, in that he only cons con people. Except he doesn't, does he? She then repeats the line to Manny when they actually do con the con man. Maybe Charlie had binge-watched Dexter recently. Charlie also sports a really cool Fleetwood Mac shirt from their later era. We get Mick Fleetwood and Stevie Nicks in the classic pose from their legendary Rumours album. And I'll be listening to Fleetwood Mac for the rest of the day, thank you very much. Finally, the gang's resident actor is seen reading On Method Acting by Edward Dwight Easty. I bet it wasn't even a prop, but it was just in one of these guys' actual bookcase. In terms of time and space in Charlie's travels, we are in Philadelphia, and this time they've made an effort effort and found an actual Philadelphia street to show us, and we are only about a couple of weeks after the dramatic events of Cyber Monday at the Super Saver. I wonder if they meant to show Poker Face not in the middle of the summer. In this episode, we get another inkling about the potential fallibility of Charlie's lie detecting ability. Guy, seen here marking some Uno cards, proposed that under the right circumstances, Charlie could be fooled. Charlie considered that yes, theoretically, the world's greatest sociopath could trick her. She doesn't really believe it though, especially because Guy is such a jerk, but we, the audience, get another hint. A New Lease on Death is the first New York episode of the season. Leon is of course a New Yorker, and this episode is an homage to all things New York, giving a rather Woody Allen feeling with the soundtrack and the opening fonts and the bodega. There's also of course the very Only Murders in the Building vibe, with those glorious apartments and the quirky neighbors and, you know, the murder in the building. Let's start with the usual friends and family section to accommodate the many friends of Natasha Lyonne and or the frequent collaborators of Ryan Johnson that appear on the show. This time we get fellow New Yorker Awkwafina, with whom Lyonne has collaborated in the past, having directed and having done a cameo in an episode of Awkwafina's Nora from Queens Comedy Central show. There were also reports of Lyonne collaborating with Alia Shawkat on a TV series for Amazon called Desert People that Shawkat would write, but which, as far as I can tell, hasn't been put into production yet. She was great here as the absolutely menacing con woman, and never before have I rooted so much for a poker face murderer to get caught. And I thought it was particularly cold that when she was plotting the murder of Awkwafina, the song Dreamer of Penny Lane was playing, and again after she thought she had killed Charlie. One of our guests is a retired professor of poetry, and hence the episode is full of poetry. It begins with the meet-cute between her and the murderer, where they paraphrase lines from This Is Just to Say, one of the most famous poems of William Carlos Williams, an American modernist poet and physician. The next reference is by our own Charlie, when she paraphrases Tennyson, the poem The Charge of the Light Brigade, while talking to the lady that peeled potatoes by the entrance. I guess I will feel very uncultured going to the supermarket later not quoting poetry. Our erudite murderess then tries to console Nana Ann after the death of her granddaughter by quoting One Art by Elizabeth Bishop, an American award-winning poetess of the 20th century. The final sidelines we hear are from Edna St. Vincent Millet's Dirge Without Music. In more highbrow references, our killer is a fan of photography, recognizing a William Eggleston photograph hanging on poor Ricardo's wall. Eggleston is an award-winning photographer that focuses on the mundane, and he popularized color photography as a form of art. And I thought there were some good jokes in the episode. I liked how Good Buddy's doormat said, "Home is where the mustard is," only to see that his fridge was full of mustard. I like how everyone knew what a Schlage 50 is, even though Charlie could not pronounce it, although she was able to say,
Chernobylicious.
Here's Otto, the annoying landlord, washing off a graffiti that says Otto sucks. We get the lady with the potatoes being an investigative journalist on Vague magazine, a publication that was about
this and that.
She also has a barb about being fired after punching Rex Reed, who is a film critic that has a very confrontational style, which seems borders onto being a dickhead. I had a look at his review for Knives Out, which he gave 3 out of 4 stars, and for which he wrote, "There isn't a genuine thrill in sight." That's for a 3-star film? Harsh. There are also a couple of interesting side characters. The tap-dancing firefighter who lives in 1G and who Charlie refers to as John Bubbles, a tap dancer and vaudevillian actor, and then Pej Vaghdad, who played Abdul of the bodega. He has played a store owner in Chicago as well. The new potential tenant is Karim Rama, a comedian who is famous, among other things, for his YouTube series Subway Takes, where he interviews people in the subway holding a New York MetroCard microphone. In this episode, Charlie has her first fateful encounter with Alex, aka the Iguana. We now know that this was a test, containing at least 3 lies, devised by Alex to determine whether she could beat Charlie's lie detector abilities. Charlie fails to see through the deception, and Alex is emboldened to take on the contract on Beatrix. Finally, we get a look at Good Buddy's apartment and his tastes. He's into German literature, reading Marxist playwright and thinker Bertolt Brecht and Thomas Mann's Dr. Faustus. He has a couple of tomes of Henry James tales. He has an old copy of Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. He can read French, Les Voyageurs sans Spagaz, The Traveler Without Luggage, which is a 1937 play by Jean Anouilh. And this one, which you can't really see, is the anthology Writers in Revolt, which has some fairly interesting pieces by William Burroughs, Samuel Beckett, and Iris Murdoch, among others. His musical tastes are decidedly more American and include country pianist Floyd Kramer, some bluegrass by Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, Lena Ronstadt, who I think has sung a bit of everything, Marty Robbins, a country and western singer, and Black Gold? I don't know what that is. Does anybody know? And of course, Elvis. He has 2 VHS boxes that we can see, the classic 75 Robert Altman film Nashville, and a more eclectic choice, Two Lane Blacktop, which is a road movie that followed the success of Easy Rider, which feels very on brand for Good Buddy. In this episode, we get the last voice appearance of Good Buddy, who, given the events of later episodes, feels like a bit of a loose end. I don't think that Good Buddy had anything to do with the iguana. The timeline doesn't really fit. Rian Johnson has said that they wanted to work with Steve Buscemi, but that the scheduling didn't work, so they just got his voice. It also works nicely as a red herring, and a convenient plot facilitator with his New York flat. And if you thought that the Jeopardy questions from the episode were random, think again. It looks like Lyonne was reading a Buckminster Fuller book at the time. Episode 10 is The Big Pump. Charlie is still in New York, in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, in the same building as in the previous episode. We see some returning characters. Noreen, the ex-investigative journalist, potato peeling in front of the building, the new tenant of Annie's apartment from the previous episode, and Alex, who we had briefly seen paying a coffee forward to Charlie. Charlie sticking around and building a community is a nice change of pace, even though people in that community will inevitably turn up dead. She even joins the gym, which is naturally plastered with motivational posters, my favorite of which is Reduce, Reuse, Relift. And in further motivational posters, if you are looking for that W.E.B. Du Bois quote from the cafe, it's strive for that greatness of spirit that measures life not by its disappointments, but by its possibilities, which doesn't make any sense to me. Time-wise, we would still be in winter, even though I can't believe it would be that sunny in New York, nor that people would dress that lightly. This is the episode where Alex inserts herself into Charlie's life as a hapless friend. There are 3 things she does that make her almost irresistible to Charlie. Firstly, she always tells the truth, which must feel like a relief to Charlie, who is so used to bullshit. Secondly, she presents herself as naively and dangerously helpless. Thirdly, she offers herself as someone needing a friend, and constantly flatters Charlie in the process. The relationship-starved Charlie didn't stand a chance. The episode also offers some clues as to the nefarious intentions of Alex. First, there's the 2 truths and a lie game, in which the third truth is something we, as the audience, can easily look out for to disprove. Then there is a song Warning by Carolyn Hester that plays just as Charlie had committed to trusting Alex at the close of the episode. Anyway, one of Alex's theories is that Brick, the gym manager, might be trying to hide blood boys, which is not as scary as it sounds. It is a meme that started from the show Silicon Valley, mocking billionaire Peter Thiel, who wanted to use transfusions of young people's blood in an effort to remain young. There was a big theme of babies in the episode, what with the whole breast milk thing, but also with Brick and his partner, when she was feeding him like a baby at the beginning, and then when he broke down at the end crying, "I did a bad thing." I mean, no judgment, whatever makes people happy. It did bring to my mind the other famous Chris Isaak song, Baby Did a Bad Thing. Another really good one was when Charlie was explaining to Alex her gift, when we cut to 23 seconds later, to spare us from having to hear the same story. It's especially sweet because the later card had been used earlier in the episode to show an actual passage of time. Finally, as always, the friends and family section. We have another episode with many familiar faces. We have old Natasha Lyonne pal Clea Duvall directing the episode. She appeared on the last episode of season 1 as Charlie's sister and has played Lyonne's girlfriend in the past on a couple of occasions. Lastly, in Duvall's The Intervention, where they were also hanging out with another guest from this episode, Jason Ritter. Ritter, who of course is the son of late John Ritter, is also the husband of Melanie Lynskey, who we saw a couple of episodes ago. Anyway, it appears that Poker Face is not only an opportunity to reunite with old friends, but also a chance to make some new ones, as Lyonne apparently really hit it off with Method Man. We get along so well, it turns out that he and I are maybe the same person, Lyonne said in an interview. He even let her call him Clifford, which only his grandmother does. Episode 11 was terrific. Let's dive in. First, we say hi to this great roster of guests, of which, of course, Taylor Schilling is an old pal of Natasha Lyonne from Orange is the New Black. Justin Theroux, on the other hand, is a previous collaborator of Poker Face creator Ryan Johnson, having had a cameo at Johnson's Last Jedi as Master Codebreaker in what was apparently originally intended to be a bigger role, but was still a fun experience for Star Wars fanboy Theroux. In terms of Haley Joel Osment, Natasha Lyonne said in Amy Poehler's podcast that she felt a kinship with him, as they were both former child stars. And they're both in the credits for Kevin Smith's Yoga Hosers, although I don't know if either of their roles was significant enough for them to have met, or that anyone involved with that film would want to remember it. Meanwhile, Lily Taylor doesn't need to be anyone's friend, she's just awesome. Time-wise, we are officially in 2026, in February. We should check with that groundhog about the weather. The opening murder is pretty gruesome. I did Google to see if it's possible to dispose of a body like that, but was too chicken to click on any of the links. So now I just have that in my search history with nothing to show for. I should remember to delete that after this. Anyway, the worst thing in that scene is the book organization scheme of the original Mr. Tolocci. The books are sorted by color? Sir, you deserve to die for that. Our assassin is carrying a photo of Columbo, as Mr. Tolocci has a glass eye and apparently used to impersonate Peter Falk for the amusement of his students. Our assassin also wears some latex prosthetics, not going fully Mission Impossible, but close enough. Here's a glimpse of him on the mirror, by the way, but maybe he's just wearing another disguise. Back in New York, Charlie is still in Good Buddy's apartment, sleeping under the apartment of the tap dancing firefighter from 2 episodes ago. She had then called him John Bubbles, and she now refers to him as Fred Astaire. Solid old Hollywood references from Charlie. Charlie Scrooge even gives us a humbug as she goes to open the door for the visiting Alex. No such thing as a free breakfast, am I right? With regards to Alex's oyster scheme, it's called Yippee-ki-yay Oyster Shacker, and we get a second reference in the show to the classic Christmas movie Die Hard. We have to talk about these outfits that Alex and Charlie wear. I don't know what they're supposed to be. Are they supposed to be old-timey sailors or French mimes? Hilariously, when she runs away, Charlie is described by the FBI as dressed like Steamboat Willie. As for the oysters, Alex tells Charlie their provenance, only for Charlie, the ever-consummate professional, to turn around and describe them to the guests as Deepwater Horizon, possibly thinking of that environmental catastrophe in the Gulf of Mexico from 2010 that was the largest marine oil spill in history, or the Mark Wahlberg film of the same name. The Charlie word of the day is Euclidean, referring to the ancient Greek mathematician and geometer, in terms of the triangular nature of Haley Joel Osment's MLM scheme. And for the second episode in a row, we don't get to listen to Charlie's thing. This time, we don't get a placeholder, but instead, the event announcer interrupts the explanation. Okay, let's talk about the iguana in the room. At first, this looks like another random murder, but then the episode gives us several clues. For starters, it's bonkers that of all the oyster-serving weddings in all the oyster-serving world, Charlie walks into the wedding of Hasp's son. Yes, somebody could have manipulated Alex, knowing that she's Charlie's friend. But there's more. She just happens to walk into the boathouse, acting clumsy, just as the assassin is looking for Apache, while talking to his voice-altered contact. The voice was altered for a reason, not only so that the assassin won't recognize it, but also that we won't. Also, she flirts awkwardly with him to emphasize her innocence and gullibility, and get him to pick her as Apache to involve Charlie as well. The FBI agents say that until now, they did not know if the iguana existed, or whether it was a man or a woman. The title of the penultimate episode is The Day of the Iguana, modeled after The Day of the Jackal. Nothing to see here, you'll say, it's a wordplay, referring to the thriller Day of the Jackal. The jackal is an assassin, just as the iguana is an assassin, no big deal. But also, the jackal was the name of the con person in the old Dirty Rotten Scoundrels film, where we, the audience, thought that the jackal was Steve Martin, but it turned out that the jackal was the supposed innocent woman they were trying to con. Anyway, as the episode ends, we are heading towards Indiana to find Beatrix Haas based on her Finsta account. In episode 12, we pick up right where we left. Before I go into the whole iguana thing, let's first quickly deal with our usual friends and family section. You would think that in an episode with mostly returning guest stars, there wouldn't be much to talk about, but you would think wrong. Even though most of them were there to play dead bodies and or be killed swiftly. Adam Arkin, originally famous as not George Clooney in one of the many hospital procedurals that followed the success of ER in the 90s, may not be a familiar face in the Poker Face universe, but he's certainly a familiar name, as he has acted as executive producer in all of season 2 and has directed Fun Favorites, Sloppy Joseph, and One Last Job. And in case you missed him, a quick shout on Steve Earle as the truck driver who isn't good buddy. He's a legendary singer-songwriter with notable appearances on TV shows like The Wire, who, like Natasha Lyonne, is a survivor of heroin addiction. So, to the Iguana, we get the big reveal. Alex was the Iguana, the world's best assassin, looking for meaning in her life by trying to fool human lie detector Charlie and in the process fulfill a mob hit. The subterfuge on the identity of the Iguana was kept by Poker Face even in the IMDb credits. This snapshot from before the episode aired is crediting Justin Theroux as playing Iguana/Todd. If you watch the episode suspecting that Alex was the Iguana, as I did, it actually really works. There are several times when Charlie suspects it's all a setup and doesn't really want to go forward, but Alex puts on a sad face and appeals to Charlie's do-gooder side and changes her mind. It does require some suspension of disbelief, but overall the show plays its hand well to give us a worthy nemesis for Charlie. It's funny how Luca presents Charlie to his superiors as a detecting genius. She really isn't. She usually just stumbles to the solution, often because she's the only one looking. Alex's diversion at the truck stop, for instance, when she stabs a random man in order to get him to react to them, is an example of Charlie not thinking clear. Why would an accomplished assassin randomly start yelling "Oyster Girl" in a diner full of people? Surely it wouldn't be an effective way of catching them, but alas, the adrenaline-soaked Charlie is not able to see through the Iguana's manipulation. And incidentally, what an awesome transition! Bravo, Natasha! What gives Alex away to Charlie, albeit too late, was, as I suspected, the alleged cinnamon allergy. There are several fun touches in Alex's backstory. She has an agent, who is a mysterious voice on the phone. She has burner phones and hooks on her kitchen island. She killed a polar bear with her bare hands, en route to a panic room in Alaska, and used it to decorate her psychopath apartment with a view to, is that the Queensboro Bridge in New York? The Sherlock Holmes theme is first touched in the episode by Luca when he calls Charlie Sherlock Holmes, but then Alex leans into it too. She refers to Charlie as the Sherlock to her Moriarty, and Sherlock Holmes fans will surely remember that in the short story The Final Problem, Conan Doyle decided to kill off both Sherlock and Moriarty by having them meet their ends at the bottom of the Reichenbach Falls. Ultimately, Conan Doyle had to resurrect Sherlock, and so he survived the fall after pressure from fans, and both our Sherlock and Moriarty did survive this fall. The episode was directed by Natasha Lyonne herself and written by Laura Dealey, and we get some very nice shots and plot details. Of course, the to-be-continued shot over the cliff is genius, and brings tears of recognition to every TV watcher that has been shocked by a cliffhanger ending in the past. The overhead shots in Beatrix's home as well were also pretty cool, as was the old-timey filter used throughout the episode. I also loved the use of the little clown in the truck stop diner, filmed like a classic horror trope, subverted by the fact that it is just a little girl in the middle of the day. The episode ended up on a really sad note. I get it that it makes for better drama if Charlie's on the run, but having a safe life didn't stop Miss Marple or Angela Lansbury from solving tons of mysteries. At least Charlie gets a dog in the end, that we also now have to worry about. And I'm really sad about the Barracuda. It was her home and companion for so long. Where will she keep all her hats and DVDs now? Hopefully we'll get a third season to see how Charlie gets out of this hole, although that hasn't been confirmed yet. The episode had time for a few good jokes in the middle of all the mayhem. When a stressed Charlie jokingly asks the diner waitress for a Xanax, the waitress matter-of-factly says that there's someone in the parking lot selling them with a buy one to get one deal. Sorry to disappoint, there is no Grand Canyon in Indiana, but boy do I want that hat. When Alex wanted to see if she could fool Charlie's lie detector, she asked for the most disgusting beverage they had at the coffee shop, and she was given a butterscotch pumpkin mochaccino. Greenville, Indiana, where Hasp's safe house was located, is really unimpressed with its own existence. Its road sign reads, "Just 2 roads and a handful of houses twinned with nowhere." Let's congratulate whoever thought to add this joke in the middle of the most tense scene of the episode. Hasp, before being assassinated by the Iguana, was watching Wheel of Fortune, and specifically the episode where Tavares made this bold prediction. And it's only fair that after so much drama, Charlie takes up smoking again. Finally, let's get real nosy. On her laptop, Alex seems to have access to photos from several investigations, and what seems to be Charlie's cloud? Maybe that's an indication of another rat mole situation that could help Charlie out of her current predicament. Fingers crossed we'll find out. By the way, the photo of Charlie that they used to disprove a look at the agency's meeting is from episode 2 back in Florida, which means that the FBI has been keeping tabs on Charlie for quite a while. And that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed the ride as much as I did. And if anyone is still watching, thank you so much. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing. See you at the next one, maybe.